Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Citizens of the world, citizens of Chicago, wherever you are, we're glad you're listening to Live from the Heartland or viewing it. And our next guest is no stranger to the show. The one and only Sarah Burry is a candidate for the Water Reclamation District, and that's all about clean water. And she was a guest on the show back in August, and we're glad she's back because it's an important position, one that not a lot of people pay attention to or know about, but one that affects us all. So good day to you, Sarah.
Good day. Good morning. Thanks for having me back. I really appreciate that.
Well, it's good to have you. And tell people what the job is and what you will bring to it.
Yeah, so the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District manages storm and wastewater. That's a big question people have. They often want to ask about drinking water, but that's not what they manage, even though they impact drinking water to some extent. So the board members themselves obviously don't treat the wastewater, but they make the big decisions about things like contracts for goods and services, workers' comp agreements, what like policy things in terms of land use or equity and equitable based decision making. A lot of those things are legal instruments, and I think it would be useful to have another attorney on the board to help process those things, but also because that makes it easier to explain to folks what is happening with the board. And I think that missing piece there between the people and the agency is something I can really help with.
And, tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about what attracted you to run for this position, given your own history of water in your basement.
Yeah, so I grew up in a house that flooded every time it rained. I had siblings that lived in the basement, and they would wake up to sewage. And so that we lost space. Eventually, we lost a lot of money because the entire basement had to be torn out. And also time, like people sometimes have to take off work when they know a storm is coming. We had to spend time literally shoveling the waste back toward the drains in our basement. And so there's a huge cost here to individuals, and there are just a lot of folks who can't afford that. So I took that experience, and I took a dad who was an environmentalist. I took the experience from growing up with him, and I went to law school and I studied environmental law. I also have a master's degree in environmental politics. And I've been working on the environment for over 15 years with organizations like the Alliance for the Great Lakes. When I was in law school, I worked for the DOJ, the EPA, the city of Chicago. I volunteered for the Sierra Club, and as well as I'm the treasurer of the League of Women Voters of Lake Michigan, and I was the water issue specialist for the League of Women Voters of Illinois. So I've been working on these water issues, and I don't think that we can discount that as an important motivation for wanting to continue to work on these water issues. So I want to protect the environment as well as the people who live in it.
Well, let's talk about the race, because the Democratic Party, which usually picks the people who will win in this area, they did not endorse you. And I don't know who they endorsed, if they're really people with skills and talents. But you impressed an awful lot of people by getting on the ballot. I mean, you ran a campaign and got signatures, and unexpectedly, certainly to the Democratic Party, the regular Democratic Party, you got yourself on the ballot. What does that mean, and what's your take on that process?
So that's exactly right. I think they were very surprised. The person that they ended up endorsing does not have any environmental experience. And I think the fact that she doesn't have a website or a social media indicates how she feels about people being able to reach her or understand her platform. When she made her speeches, she said things like, "People told me to run." And that was her motivation for running, instead of caring about the community or the environment. She seems like a nice person, but that doesn't qualify you for the Water Reclamation District. And so we had over 75 volunteers who came and gathered signatures. Some of them I just met on the street asking for a signature, and they heard my background and why I'm running, and they decided to join in and help get signatures. And we submitted over 10,200 signatures, and we needed 7,702. And then we submitted those signatures, and they challenged them. And they challenged them such that we had to come the next day to defend our signatures with 10 people the next day on a work day where people are normally at work. And they didn't think we were going to be able to do it. And we didn't have to pay a single person. People just rose up and they said, we will absolutely help you defend the signatures. And the community keeps showing up for me. And hopefully we can talk a little bit about endorsements in a little bit.
Sarah, I wonder, up in the 49th Ward, you have a lot of friends. You live up here. You're involved. We are on one body together, steering committee of Network 49. How did you, I know you got an awful lot of support up here, but how did you deal with the rest of the city, getting names, contacts, and enough votes to put you on the ballot?
Yeah, I do want to say about the ballot, there are 4 people running for this role, and you can pick up to 3. Of course, I won't cry if anyone only picks me, but I am 4th of the 4, so that there's some advantage to being last on the ballot. And that's punch number 84 for folks who are interested in punch numbers. As far as appealing to the South and West sides, I think it's really important that people understand that this position is at large. So every commissioner represents everyone who's in the district, not just the folks who live around them. And so I was determined to show up in spaces. I went to the Bud Billiken parade. I went to Democratic Party events all over the county, including I grew up on the Southwest side. So the South side is not a foreign place to me at all. And I did a lot of theater at Ridge Park in Beverly. So I've spent a lot of time on the South side. And it was so important to me to get buy-in from community members all over the county. And I had so many people say to me, I've never met anyone running for this before. No one has ever come to where we are to talk about this. I think that's not okay. And I think we need to show up in our communities and continue showing up even when there's not an election. So we have signatures from all over the county. And that was not just by showing up. It was also by building relationships. And after Kamala Harris lost, I got involved in local races because we had some suburban local races that spring and needed to do something. I was very motivated, and I had worked so hard on Operation Swing State, sending people to Wisconsin and Michigan, that all of a sudden just it being over wasn't going to work for me. So I volunteered to get Democrats on the ballot or elected in the suburbs and have just kept organizing since. And building those relationships is so important.
You've gotten some endorsements. Do you want to share a few?
Yeah. So the big one is the Sierra Club endorsed us, which is the endorsement to get. I also have the Cook County Farm Bureau, as well as Victory Fund, and also a lot of local organizations like the United Northwest Side, Northside Democracy for America, 33rd Ward Working Families, and Lucy Moog. They just keep coming in, and that's because I share the value of representing the people and actually listening to and having conversations with them.
Let me ask you what you think are a couple, maybe 2 of the biggest challenges facing the Water Reclamation District.
Just to go back to that other question for just a second. I didn't get endorsed by the Tribune, but even they said, they said she's running a spirited campaign and is supported by the Sierra Club. And so I feel like they even though they didn't give me the formal endorsement, they did a lot of the walking for me in that case. Nice.
I can't read the Tribune because it's got a paywall, but I do see the headlines.
Someone sent me a screenshot. And then their argument for my opponent was that she's going to use her political connections to influence policy in legislation. And the thing is, when I went around telling people I was running against her the first time, most people around here didn't know who she was. And on top of that, using your political connections should not be the way that you get into office. That's not what representation is about. So the 2 biggest issues facing the MWD, we have a lot of emerging contaminant situations. So we have PFAS to worry about. We have microplastics. There's that, and trying to figure out how to impact those situations in the best way. The MWD commissioners did go down to Springfield and lobby for to ban PFAS, certain kinds of PFAS in certain products. So I think that's really a good use of their time. So sometimes with certain things, it's easier to stop it at its source instead of trying to treat it. And I think we should do both, but stopping PFAS particularly at its source and microplastic.
When you say stopping what? I got to get this word correctly.
PFAS?
Yeah. How do you spell that?
That's an acronym. It's PFAS, and it stands for per or polyfluoroalkyl substances.
Okay.
Which are also just known as forever chemicals. Right.
Uh-huh.
And so if we can, they're in so many things. So if we can like get rid of the ones in makeup, right, that gets us a certain percentage closer to getting rid of PFAS in general. If we can get rid of the ones that are in our cookware, which is wild that they're there, we're literally eating them, then that can help with another percentage of the issue of the supply of them in the first place. And then microplastics, of course. We have those plastics breaking down in our water, and it's being fed to our children through breast milk and our water, and our fish and other food. And so that's an issue. And we don't completely know the impacts of this in terms of human health, but we can probably guess that it's not very good. The other thing that's up in front of us right now is water reuse.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about AI and the data centers.
Yeah. But before we get there, it's a ripe time. AI data centers were the number one question that I got while I was asking for signatures. But behind that is this idea of people just using our water for whatever they want. And the MWD has started, they've been talking about it for a long time, but they just started really investigating the possibility of water reuse, thanks to Sharon Waller, who's a big advocate for that. And the other thing is that there was a bill that passed in recent years that expanded who was allowed to have water reuse in the state of Illinois. And so the possibilities are opening up. And AI data centers right now, they want to use our drinking water that we have processed from the lake. And I don't think they should get access to that. I don't think they should get access to our water at all. Whether or not we have control over that is a different question. But if they did get access to our water, every place is different, right? There are some pros and cons to everything. But I think we should at least explore the possibility that the water that they get access to is reused water that we've already treated in our treatment plant. So they could just set up outside a plant and do that and use that water. There's some argument that might introduce some phosphates into the water, depending on where they then get released. But right now, the way that AI data centers run is nobody really knows what they're doing because they're using non-contact permits, which means they don't have to report the water that they take in or the water that they release, because they're taking the water from our system and then they're releasing it into our system for the MWD to process. So technically it's non-contact, which is really interesting. And maybe we can talk about that more on a day that you have more time on the show.
Well, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm just let's kind of wind it up with the possible growth of AI centers. What about and using a lot of electricity, which I imagine would connect to the Water Reclamation District? What about more solar and wind power on MWD property?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of exploring those possibilities. Obviously, that's a discussion we need to have with engineers, because if I decide which buildings have solar on them, buildings are going to collapse because I don't know which ones are strong enough to hold that, or, what the exact hit of light is on them. So, but that's another important thing. I think we need to talk to our team. They know best what is going on, and definitely explore the idea of reusable energy. Also, sharing energy with communities is something that we should explore that we don't really do right now. I do want to say about the water pollution from AI data centers is dangerous, right? Because sometimes they add nitrates, and sometimes even if they don't add nitrates, there is evaporation of water. And so the water enters with the same amount of nitrates as it exits, but with less water, that means the nitrates are concentrated at a higher level, going back into our system. And I don't think the MWRD should have to treat the water that the AI data centers are using without at least charging them through the nose. And maybe then we can update our infrastructure with that additional money.
Well, as somebody who's composed mostly of water, I'm really concerned with how water is dealt with, and I think you'd make a great Water Reclamation District Commissioner. So good luck to you, Sarah Burry.
Thank you. Punch 84.
Do you have any way that someone can contact you if they want more information?
Absolutely. Our website, you can just go to sarahburry.org, or you can email contact@sarahforwaterrec.org. We have 2 weeks left, and early voting has begun, y'all. Let's do it.
Good luck to you, and thanks for coming on live from the Heartland Show.